Welcome back to the deep dive. So I want to start today by tapping into a very specific feeling. I think everyone listening has felt this. You know that anxiety when you start something brand new,
Oh, yeah.
like new job, or maybe you've just become a parent, or you're trying to pivot your whole career.
The blank page syndrome.
It's more than that, though. It's physically uncomfortable. You have all this energy, like you're buzzing with adrenaline. You want to sprint.
But you have no idea where the track is.
Exactly. No idea where forward is. It's just high energy, zero visibility. You're revving the engine till the needle hits red, but the car's in neutral.
That is a very distinct type of stress. And usually we just, we label it fear or we think we're unprepared. But if you look at the source material we're covering today, the ancient I Ching, that feeling has a name. It isn't a mistake. It's a structural phase of reality.
And we are diving into the hexagram known as Méng. The translation is often mountain water Méng, or sometimes youthful folly.
Or, as I prefer to call it based on the commentary, the chaos of beginning.
The chaos of beginning. I have to be honest, when I hear I Ching, I usually think, fortune-telling, very abstract philosophy. But this reads less like a mystical text and more like a user manual for cognitive psychology. It's so practical.
It is incredibly practical. I mean, the I Ching is essentially a system of archetypes describing how change happens. And to really get Méng, you have to look at the image it creates. It's a visual metaphor.
Okay, so help us visualize this. What are we looking at?
Well, the hexagram is a stack of two trigrams. The bottom part is can, which is water, and the top part is Zhen, which is a mountain.
Okay, so structurally, water under a mountain.
Exactly. Now, just apply some physics to that. You've got a spring trying to gush out of the earth. That's the water. It's pressurized. It wants to flow.
Right.
But it is sitting directly underneath a massive, immovable rock.
So the water is the internal state, the feeling.
Yes. In the system, can isn't a peaceful lake. It represents danger, anxiety, deep churning energy. It's that drive you feel when you launch that startup. You're just bubbling over.
And the mountain is?
The mountain is reality. It's the boundary, the wall in your way. And it's not malicious. The mountain doesn't hate the water. It's just topography. You can't see where you're going because there is a literal granite wall in front of your face.
That is such a validation of that new job anxiety. It's not that you're incompetent.
No.
It's that you're a flood without a channel.
Precisely. And this is the core definition of Méng we have to get right. A lot of older translations call it ignorance or stupidity, which sounds so pejorative.
Yeah, like, oh, you foolish child.
Right. But the source clarifies that Méng describes a state of turbid water. It's not dead water. It's not stagnant. It's alive. It's surging. It just hasn't formed a riverbed yet.
I love that. It's not that you're broken. It's that you're a flood.
Exactly. And floods are powerful, but they are messy. So the mission of this deep dive and the mission of this hexagram really is hydroengineering. How do we carve a channel so this energy doesn't just explode, but actually goes somewhere?
Okay, so before we get into the step-by-step, the 6 lines, we have to talk about the 3 mentalities. This stood out to me as like the terms and conditions you have to accept before you can learn anything.
I think of it as the user interface. If you don't have these 3 settings toggled to on, the rest of it won't work. You'll just stay stuck under the mountain.
The first rule is a bit of a slap in the face. The source quote is, "It is not I who seek the young fool seeks me."
This is the rule of friction, or the rule of pain.
It sounds a little arrogant, doesn't it? I'm not coming to help you. You have to come to me.
It does, but it's actually a law of physics about information transfer. Think about it. If you try to force advice on someone who doesn't think they have a problem, what happens?
They get defensive. They ignore you. Or they nod and then do whatever they were going to do anyway.
Right. Knowledge cannot be force-fed. The young fool, the learner, has to be the one to initiate, because the search has to be driven by an internal signal that says, I am stuck. I don't get this.
So until you hit the wall, until you feel the pain of that collision with the mountain, you aren't actually teachable.
You're just browsing. You're a tourist. Real learning requires a crack in the ego to let the light in. And that crack only comes from necessity. So, rule 1. You have to feel the desperation of not knowing.
That leads right into rule 2, which is about how we handle advice. The text says, the first oracle informs.
This is about trusting your initial instinct. The source warns that if you ask 2 or 3 times, it becomes disrespectful, and it just stops answering.
Disrespectful is a weird word for data analysis. But I feel like we do this constantly. We run a test, we don't like the numbers, so we run it again with different parameters.
We do it in our personal lives, too. You ask a friend for advice. They give you an honest answer. You don't like it, so you ask another friend.
And another. Until you find someone who tells you what you want to hear.
Exactly. So you aren't looking for truth. You're looking for comfort. The source says the first gush of the spring is the cleanest water. That first intuition, that first data set, that's usually the raw truth.
When you keep asking, you're just muddying the water.
You're stirring up sediment to hide the reality. It's not curiosity, it's anxiety-seeking reassurance.
Okay. Stop asking the same question.
Okay.
Got it. And the third rule, it furthers one to be persevering.
Don't switch paths in the fog. This is the shiny object syndrome killer.
This is the hardest one for me. When you're in that Méng state, total chaos, no visibility, your instinct is to constantly pivot. Maybe this strategy. No, that one. Learn Python. No, JavaScript.
And that oscillation is fatal. The text says the spring becomes a river not because it knows where the ocean is, it has no idea, but because it never turns back. It commits. If you walk 3 steps, doubt, turn left, walk 3 steps, doubt.
Yeah.
You're just vibrating in place.
Burning energy, but making no displacement.
Exactly. You have to pick a direction, even if you aren't 100% sure it's perfect, and just commit long enough to see if it works.
Okay, so we have the mindset. Accept the friction, trust the first signal, don't bail out. Now let's look at the actual trajectory. The lower trigram first, the internal churning.
This is where we deal with that turbid water inside our own heads.
And line 1 opens with something that sounded like a punishment to me. It says, use shackles and fetters.
Méng, discipline.
Shackles and fetters. That one sounds like prison. Welcome to your new job. Here are your shackles.
It does sound harsh, but remember the context. You are a flood. If a river is flooding a village and you build a levee, are you punishing the water?
No, you're rescuing the village. You're channeling it.
You're giving it shape. In that startup phase of learning, your mind is spinning. You have what the source calls yang energy, drive, but no yin root, no foundation. The shackles are about limiting your options.
The dead rule. That's what you called it in the note.
Yes, the dead rule is about killing off creativity to focus on mechanics. Before a jazz musician can improvise, what do they have to do?
Scales. Boring, repetitive scales.
Exactly. Musical shackles. You are not allowed to play jazz. You must hit these keys in this exact order, over and over.
So the limitation creates the capacity for flow later on.
You have to survive the boredom of mechanical execution to build the riverbed. If you try to be creative on day 1, you just get mud.
That makes the grind feel more purposeful. Okay, so we've shackled ourselves. Now we move to line 2, and the vibe shifts completely.
Line 2 is the holding environment. This is the only solid line in this whole lower trigram. It represents the teacher, the parent, the manager, sitting in the middle of all this chaos.
The action is bearing with the ignorant. Méng.
So if line 1 is about the water needing discipline, line 2 is about the container needing patience. This is for the leaders listening. Your job is not to fix every single mistake immediately.
But isn't that a manager's job? To correct errors. Hey, you did this wrong. Fix it.
Eventually, yes. But there's a difference between correction and crushing. The source links this to the concept of the holding environment. It's a space where it is safe to be stupid, safe to be fragile.
Because if I'm terrified of you yelling at me, I stop taking risks.
You stop flowing. You freeze. And frozen water doesn't carve a riverbed. If a junior messes up, you don't shame them. You accept the muddy water. The payoff is huge. The son is capable of taking charge of the household.
Meaning if you provide that safety, they eventually grow up to run the place.
They internalize your stability, they grow a backbone, but if you crush them early, they either quit or stay dependent forever.
So, line 1, get disciplined. Line 2, be patient. But then we hit line 3, and this feels like a trap. The maiden and the man of gold.
This is the danger zone. The text is, do not take a maiden who sees a man of gold and loses possession of herself.
Loses possession of herself. That is a heavy phrase. What is the man of gold in a modern context?
So you've been working hard, you've been patient, but you still don't have results, your anxiety spikes, and then suddenly you see a shortcut.
A get-rich-quick scheme. A hack.
Exactly. And the source says this is different from just being lost. In line 3, you know better. You see the gold and you make a conscious decision that the gold is worth more than your integrity.
It's not a mistake, it's a transaction. You're selling yourself.
Think of the entrepreneur faking data to get the next round of funding. They know it's wrong, but they think, I just need the cash, then I'll fix it.
Or the influencer promoting scams because their engagement is dropping.
Yes, they are losing possession of themselves. The source warning is stark. Nothing furthers. If the solution looks like gold, too fast, too shiny, check the price tag. If the price is your dignity, don't buy it.
So we've navigated the internal world, disciplined ourselves, found a safe container, resisted the sellout. Now, the upper trigram, the mountain itself.
Right. This is where we stop looking at our psychology and start looking at the environment. Line 4 is called Kun Méng oppressed folly.
The notes call this structural poverty of information. This isn't about being dumb, it's about being starved.
Imagine you want to learn astrophysics, but you live in a town with no internet, no library, no teachers.
It doesn't matter how disciplined I am, I'm stuck.
Exactly. Line 4 is about isolation, being far from sources of wisdom. The insight here is that you cannot try harder to fix this. Effort isn't the variable.
That is a hard truth. We always think, if I just grind harder, I'll get there.
But if you're digging in dry soil, digging harder just breaks the shovel. The advice for line 4 is radical. You have to physically leave. You have to admit nothing grows here.
Sometimes the problem isn't you, it's the room you're in.
100%. If you're the smartest person in the room and you're still confused, you're in the wrong room.
So let's say you find the right room. You move to line 5, Childlike Méng. And this line is usually the position of the king or CEO.
Yes, the seat of power.
But the advice is to be childlike. A childlike CEO. That sounds like a disaster.
It sounds risky, but it's a brilliant power inversion. The person with the power, line 5, submits to the person with the knowledge, line 2.
So this is the CEO who admits, I don't know how to code, and actually lets the engineer make the call.
Yes, and it can't be fake. It's not that active listening nod while you do what you wanted anyway. It's really handing over the steering wheel.
That requires a massive amount of confidence. To be the boss and say, I am ignorant here, you drive.
It's the ultimate sign of maturity. The childlike part is that openness to being led. The beginner's mind. If you can do that, this system becomes incredibly efficient because competence is driving, not ego.
Okay, but what if we fail at all this? What if we don't find a teacher, we sell out, we stay in the echo chamber, we get to line 6?
Line 6 is the reality check, and the text is violent. Smite the ignorant.
Smite. We are back to the Old Testament vibes again.
It is the most active line, the text says. It does not further one to act like a bandit, but to kill the bandit.
Whoa. Unpack that. What is the difference between acting like a bandit and killing one?
This is the nuance of the surgical strike. If you lash out at ignorance with anger or ego, why are you so stupid? That's acting like a bandit. You're just adding violence to the chaos.
You're just making more mud.
Exactly. But killing the bandit is hitting to restore order. It's removing the tumor, a defensive strike to save the organism.
What's a real-world example of being smited?
The market crash, the health scare, the breakup, the firing.
The things that force you to stop.
Right. If soft methods, discipline, tolerance, trust all fail, reality steps in. And reality is not soft, it smites. It is the deadline in the literal sense. If you don't build the riverbed, the flood eventually destroys the village.
So line 6 is the wall hitting you back.
It's physics. You can't ignore it forever. The pressure builds, finds no exit, and eventually there's a catastrophic blowout. You can choose the surgery active change or wait for the disease, but you can't stay in the chaos forever.
That is sobering. But it makes sense. The ultimate accountability.
It is.
What a journey. It's amazing how this ancient hexagram maps out such a modern trajectory of learning.
It really does. It covers the psychology, the management, all of it.
So let's summarize this flow. It starts with that chaos, that turbid water.
Right. And then line 1 says, construct a container. Use discipline.
Line 2. If you are leading, create a holding environment. Be patient.
Line 3 warns us, don't sell out for the shortcut.
Line 4. If the environment is dead, leave. Find better soil.
Line 5 advises, if you're in charge, be humble. Let the expert drive.
And line 6 is the final warning. Respect reality or reality will break you.
That's the map. And the aha moment in all this is that Méng, this feeling of being overwhelmed and ignorant, it isn't a pathology. It's not a sickness. You are not broken.
As a hydroengineering project.
Exactly. The water will clear up, the mud will settle, but only after it fights through the rocks and finds its flow. That's the work.
Now, before we go, there was one final provocative thought. It mentions what comes after Méng.
Yes. The twist. So you've done the work, the fog lifts, the riverbed is built, the water is flowing. You'd think the next step is success.
Right.
Action.
Full speed ahead. Let's go.
But the next hexagram is number 5, U, which translates to waiting.
Waiting. After all that work, after smashing through rocks.
Waiting. The source basically asks you, now that you've finally built your riverbed, Do you have the patience to let it fill? Or are you just rushing to the next drought?
Wow, so even after you build the channel, you can't push the river.
You can only guide it, and sometimes you just have to wait for the rain.
That is something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the chaos of beginning. Hopefully your internal waters are feeling a little less turbid, a little more directed. We'll see you on the next deep dive.